Well, hey everybody, I am getting ready for Beerfest season. I know fall is here, Octoberfest is just around the corner. Uh, the big events like GABF, I know we think of these in the spring, but there's a ton of them in the fall too. And to help me with this, I have Julia Herz to tell me a little bit. So, Julia, you think I'm ready? I got everything.
Doug, you schooled me. I don't. I've been to so many beer festivals with many more in my future, and how dare I only show up with beer in my glass instead of hat on head and badge around torso? Like, come on, what was I thinking?
Well, just trying to get ready. And you're such an expert, and I want everybody to know what kind of expert you are because you're not just any beer fest person. Julia Herz is the executive director of the American Home Brewers Association and a BJCP certified beer judge for almost 30 years of experience. And you're also advanced Cicerone, right?
Yes, I am.
I thought so. You're the co-author of the Beer Pairing, the essential guide from the pairing pros. I know you're a frequent media guest on platforms like NPR and Good Morning America, and every now and then I can contact you and get you on my show, which I really appreciate. So,
Your audience is. I'm one of your fans and supporters, and your shows are great.
well, I enjoy. So, Beer Fest season is here. How
Yeah.
many have you ever been to? Because I know you've been to way more than I have.
Well, I'm prideful to be maturing. Every year I mature and advance. I am 1 year wiser. I don't think of it as 1 year older. And so I really, Doug, don't have to keep track at this point because I've earned my stripes. I've been to more than most is a good phrase. So I'm always happy to share my experiences and tips on what I've enjoyed and benefited from over the years. But I've been to more beer festivals than most, I would think is a fair thing to say.
And not just as an attendee, right?
Correct. I mean, I've worked many a beer fest. I've judged many a beer fest because also in concert with beer festivals is often competition. So yeah, participated, presented at, and judged at many, many.
Well, I would love to know what your general pro tips are, whether you're going to Oktoberfest in Munich or you're going to a local one at a fairground. What would be your pro tips for getting the most out of them and not having regrets the next day?
It's a total party to go to a beer festival. And I've made the mistake of pre-gaming before the game. So one of my big tips is, you know what? The party before the party is great sometimes, but when the party's a beer festival, you just want to show up ready to go. So I'd say, chill out a little bit on that tailgating and pre-gaming, show up fresh and ready. And if you really are into sensory and having it be not just the party, but educational experience, your head in the game and your palate more fresh is a good thing. So just wait to drink until you actually arrive is not a bad thing to institute.
So I've always struggled with, they don't ever let me in with a nice big mug like this. It's from a sensory point of view. I mean, I know they won't fill them up, but have you found any tips to bring your own?
Legality is a thing, so whether you're the largest beer festival in the world or the small one down the street, every organizer has gone through legality. They often have security. They've maybe got the servers who have been tips or safe bar trained. So when you're in a licensed area that's allowed to serve, it's under certain conditions. So bringing in licensed or sold alcohol that came from a different source, it's a big no-no. Don't worry about having a hip flask in your pocket. That's like kind of silly. You're going to get what you want and need in that festival. That's the reason you bought tickets. If you want something else, wait till you go home that evening or the next day.
So many of these last a number of days. Oktoberfest goes in Munich, I think, goes for a week or more. Others are shorter. What are your recommendations for getting through it if you want to enjoy it for several days?
Well, if you're treating it as kind of a beer tourism vacation type of thing, do plan for several days. Many festivals, as you're pointing out, Doug, have more than just one session or more than just one day of sessions. So stay over, right? Book your lodging, save up and make it a trip. Actually invest in that so you're not driving, you're close to walking distance to where the venue is, and you get to go see multiple sessions where sometimes different content is presented, different beers are tapped. So I would say for any festival that you really want to immerse yourself in, a true pro tip is to go to more than one session or try to attend more than one day.
Now, when I see you, you've usually got a bottled water in one hand. Are there any recommendations on staying hydrated?
Well, Doug, whether you're 21 or 81, you want to stay hydrated. Water's a big deal, and some festivals, frankly, won't let you bring in anything. Others will, you can bring in backpacks and whatever form of water. You want to make sure, and the trick that I use is when I'm getting a new pour, I often have either water available to me to pour or splash in the glass before I get that next pour, or many of the servers will splash some water in my glass, and I simply just drink that water. So I do kind of water sip for sip sometimes in the day or the session. And then, you don't have to do that every time, but if you're kind of doing that ratio, you're going to kind of stagger your amount of alcohol absorption and really give yourself a chance to have your palate be refreshed by that water and also be hydrated and less dehydrated for the next day.
So what's your recommendations for snacks? I've got a nice big bag of salty pretzels. That's pretty common. Is that your recommendation?
I'll bring up and dive into Great American Beer Festival a little bit. If you have been to any of the festivals, pretzels are a go-to resource, right? And I have never ceased to be amazed every year, the pretzel necklaces. They're literally pretzels on necklaces that people will make. They'll weave in, charcuterie trays practically onto the pretzel necklace. And then that way, while you're walking around, if you're in a big hall, if you're walking a lot, you have what you want to snack on right there. And there's a reason, right, that bready, salty, baked pretzels really pair well with most beer styles. Solidity will help kind of clean up the palate and cut through some of the, the residual sugar from some of the beers. You've got this synergy from the kind of baked bread pretzel aspect to go and match with, malted barley that's been kilned or roasted in all your beer styles. So I don't know, pretzels and beer are a established tradition that is, you cannot mess with that. You cannot say that they do not go hand in hand. They are synergistic, I shall say.
Okay, so you like pretzels, and you like the pretzel necklaces or whatever you can come close to. So can I make one before I go to most things and bring in my pretzel necklace?
Yes, most festivals are friendly to that. They're not friendly to other foods that you would bring in, but for some reason there's a leniency with the supporting of the pretzel culture. So I say go ahead and try it. You can always go to any festival's website or email the organizers and ask what you can bring in advance if you can't easily find that out. But most beer festivals, I often see people with pretzel necklaces.
So I'm a little prepared, maybe overdressed. What do you recommend as far as garb goes? I know when I saw John Palmer at HomebrewCon, he had a helmet with actually a fermenter bubbling on the top. Now, is that cool or what?
That was an airlock that homebrewers will use and put on the top of 5-gallon glass carboys. And he had it somehow rigged so it showed bubbling and activity of the yeast eating the sugar. It meant to emulate that, yeast eating the sugar and then exhaling carbon dioxide through that airlock. That was pretty trick. I would say, Doug, look, it's a festival. Festival means celebration. Festival means fun. Deck out. Costumes. I could send you so many fun pictures of me with people in costumes, me in costumes. And, lean into that. Have fun. Don't just go to kind of take in the atmosphere around you. Be a part of the atmosphere around you, right? Wear a costume or get a little kind of, out there. Wear your favorite hat. Wear your favorite crazy shirt and pants. Go rent a costume. Think themes. Go for it, because you often will see a lot of costumes, and it's really fun to just kind of let your hair down and express yourself in that way.
Well, you've been to a ton of fests. What are your favorites?
I would say my favorites are many. Some are emerging, and some have been established and for around many years. One of the fests that I think of, and I mentioned it because I'd like it to come back, is Big Beers, Belgians, and Barley Wines Festival. Started in Vail, Colorado, then moved itself to Breckenridge, Colorado. Had an interruption since COVID, and in some form it is back. I judged the competition in January, but the actual festival I think will live to see another day. I would say that if I go to a homebrewing festival, I am never disappointed. Southern California Homebrew Fest in San Diego every year. I've been to it twice. It's about 1,000 people. 40 plus homebrew clubs are actually the booths that you walk up to where the tables of people serving are homebrewers and their beers that they brewed together. There's no way to top, frankly, the experience on the Homebrew Fest side. I'm flying out to Northern California Homebrew Fest soon, which is in Northern California, outside of Sacramento, and again, it's 20 plus homebrew clubs. So most of the time when you go to a festival, there's also add-on for education. So I'm usually looking for fests that have some kind of education and not just the beer service. So that takes me to the kind of granddaddy of them all and how I started my career in beer festivals, which is Great American Beer Festival. I would say, and I've been to most festivals since the 90s on, so I've been to way more than half. I started as a volunteer. This year, circa 2023, this is a 40,000 plus person festival. In 3 days, 4 sessions, 500 breweries, Doug, thousands of beers, plus a competition going on, plus just a litany of educational opportunities that I'd be happy to share, and anyone can figure it out if they go to greatamericanbeerfestival.com. But it's the granddaddy of them all. It's the one that really brought craft beer on the scene, helped establish quality. And for me, as a young beer lover in my 20s, traveling cross country, when I serendipitously just volunteered at the fest, which is in Denver every year, my mind was blown, and it really, really expanded my trajectory. So whether you're a beer newbie and want to just figure out this beer thing and get immersion right away, or you're an established within the biz and you want to network with the most amount of people, go to Great American Beer Festival.
Well, speaking of that, I'm going to my first. I've been invited to cover it as media, so I'm really looking forward to it. So, Julia, how would you prioritize, and what are the pro tips for a first-timer at GABF? Because I'll be one.
So we'll review. A, plan to go for more than one session. B, obviously buy your tickets in advance. C, get lodging or stay with a friend. That way you get more immersion. And then when you go into the hall, the breweries are located by region. So if you live in the East, the Northeast, and you don't get a chance to have a lot of, say, Arizona brewery beers, go to the region in a state that you're not able to get a lot of the distributed beers. That's a really good tip, and they're easier to find based on in the hall how they are geographically laid out. I'd also say most years I pay attention to styles that I'm trying to learn more about or haven't had a lot of. So I can look up on the Great American Beer Festival website the breweries' beers by style, sort those, and create my hit list of where I want to go in advance of walking into the hall. So those are two great tips, and otherwise you could just throw it to the wind and organically bounce around like a little pinball in your sessions. That's great too. But make sure you just don't go to the brewery booths. I mean, there's taproom areas that are incredible. There's a booth called Heavy Metal where you can literally taste previous year's gold medal or medal winning beers from Great American Beer Festival.
Previous years or that year's?
Previous years.
Okay.
That year's will not. So at Great American Beer Festival, there's 4 sessions, 3 days. Thursday night, 5:30 to 10. Friday night the same. Saturday night. Saturday day is the 4th session. That tends to be a more members-only. American Home Brewers Association members stack the deck heavy for that session because the American Home Brewers Association established and started the Great American Beer Fest. And on Saturday day is when the brewer awards happen right before the Saturday afternoon session. So you won't know the actual winners until Saturday day, and Saturday night session.
Will I get to taste any of them?
Yeah, so once the awards are given out, brewers will get little stickers. And then if you attend Saturday day and Saturday night, you work the hall, no matter what style or region you're also maybe paying attention to. And you're looking for those stickers that indicate which medal it won and in which style.
Oh, awesome. So that's the advantage of coming the last day on Saturday, is you get that opportunity for the current year medal winners.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I like going Friday night, Thursday night, everything's fresh, the energy's just, really like unfolding. And then slipping in a Saturday session too is super fun, because then you do know who won the awards.
So I love talking to brewers and VIPs like you. Where would I find them?
Everywhere. I said there's 500 breweries. Most breweries do send representatives to serve. It's a who's who. Great American Beer Festival, around since 1982, is such a who's who, especially because the competition behind the scenes, which the public doesn't view, is going on. So we have a couple hundred judges from around the world, frankly, judging these beers. And it is a top-of-class judge panel to sit on. And so the judges not only judge behind the scenes during the day, but they attend the sessions. So I would say that you're going to bump into anyone and everyone. We have a whole brewer studio pavilion, which is a presentation area where top-of-class brewers present. I've had the privilege of presenting in that pavilion before, and it is a real captive audience amidst the festival. So it's just kind of lively and fun. And then you've got also the brewers that maybe want to be known and are emerging. What I do, which is a pro tip, is if you see in the hall a big view of what's going on, and again, 500 breweries, look at the line for each booth. And if you see a long line at one of the booths, then try to catch who's serving. And more than likely, it's a brewer that you want to talk to and get to know their beers from.
Ooh, okay. Well, I love that. So, Julia, how would you summarize your pro tips for events in general, but especially for GABF? Because, again, I'll be there in about a month.
Beer festivals are about fun. Treat it as such on that trip. Try to extend your time. Give yourself a place to stay that's close walking distance, and go to more than one session so you really lean in. When you're inside the session, go for education as much as kind of the indulgence, right? So balance it out with what educational sessions or networking did you get to do? What did you learn by the time you worked your way through that festival? Is a big pro tip. Have water on hand, or find where the water is in the hall. Don't lose your glass, or you will get a replacement, but it might not be the same great collectible glass that you've been given in the beginning. Drink water every other sip. And don't be afraid to lean into the pretzel world and the pretzel necklace, and good food throughout. Look where the fest is serving food. And that is, come rested, you'll leave renewed. That's my line.
Well, perfect. And I guess the other pro tip that I picked up at CBC, they had a necklace that had a cup holder in it, and you could slide your tasting cup in that. So your hands
So there's
free.
rituals inside many festivals. Great American Beer Festival, Doug's talking about, you have a little, like Doug had the badge on, and it's a badge with a lanyard that you hold your cup in. It's a super fun little nifty thing, and you can either find one in advance. Often vendors do give those away or sell them. I would also say in the festival, if you drop your glass, you are shamed loudly. So dropping your glass will cause an entire roar of a couple hundred people around you to start to scream. And so avoid dropping your glass. If you deliberately drop your glass, you'll probably be found by security and asked to leave. So don't do that. But those rituals of the glass of, on in the lanyard, and accidentally dropping it and getting kind of that checks and balance accountability shaming is something to expect and not be surprised by.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I've at least got one hat. Maybe I need a couple more for each day. I'm ready to have fun. And Julia, before we wrap up, I'm fascinated with the pictures behind you. Is that GABF?
So this one behind me is the second Great American Beer Festival. Terrible at showing you. And I'm sitting here in the organizing offices of the American Home Brewers Association and the Great American Beer Festival in the conference room. And this photo here has Fred Eckhart, who was one of the pioneers that really helped establish home brewing. And he's getting served in the circus tent. The photo is by Charlie Papazian himself, who is the founder and past president of the Brewers Association and the Great American Beer Festival. And that is some definite history where the excitement, enthusiasm, I can only imagine what it was. And that was the beginning of many, many great things.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And just one last thing, home brewing. Now, did I hear you were working on a great homebrew recipe for AHA?
Yeah, we're always working on great recipes. We have Learn to Homebrew Day coming up. We haven't announced the recipe yet, but homebrewersassociation.org is where you want to kind of pay attention. A lot of our resources are accessible to non-members, but you can join as a member. And so for November 4th, Learn to Homebrew Day, which has been around since decades and decades, you want to use those holidays like November 4th, Learn to Homebrew Day, as a chance to brew, and I think people are going to really, really love it. So stay tuned, and we'll release that recipe very soon.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Julia. I hope the next time I see you is at GABF judging, and I'm looking for. Thank you for all these pro tips.
1000%. If anyone made it this far, please come see me in person. I'll be at the American Home Brewers Association booth area, as well as the Pro-Am and Collab booth. So come find me. Let's have a beer and talk home brewing and all things. And I'd love to toast with you and see you there.
Well, speaking of toasting, cheers.
Cheers.